Welcome to On the Ballot with Ballotpedia. I'm Abby Campbell, Ballotpedia's social media manager, and I'm super excited to be hosting the show for the first time. As I'm looking at social media, both for work and in my free time, I'm seeing a lot of young voters looking for places to find good voter information. So we wanted to dedicate an episode to those young voters and talk about how we can engage better with them. There's literally no better staff member to speak with than Ballotpedia's founder and CEO, Leslie Graves. Leslie founded Ballotpedia in 2006 and has since led the organization's growth from a small group of dedicated volunteers writing on ballot measures into what is now America's most trusted source of unbiased information on politics, election, and policy. Leslie, thank you so much for joining me. It's quite an honor to be taping our 100th episode and to have you as our guest.
Well, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I'm just absolutely thrilled. So we can go ahead and just jump right into it. I want to start with talking about how young voters can stay informed about key issues and candidates, especially when there's such an abundance of information available.
Sure. I want to go back to when I was quite a bit younger, when it was time for me to cast my first vote. Yeah. And there were a few people in my world, my grandmother, and also some of my teachers who would express the thought, you must vote, it's your civic duty. And if you don't vote, you can't complain. So that was all the advice that we got. And probably some of you have heard that. So I thought, okay, well, that's apparently something you're supposed to do to be an adult member of this society. So I will go do that. And I formed an opinion about the presidential candidates, and I prepared to go vote. And I walked into the voting booth, and I was pretty stunned to discover that there were many other contests on that ballot. And I thought, well, nobody told me about this. I am deeply unprepared, and I have no idea what it was. I've never heard of these offices. I've never heard of any of these people. So the position that I formed at that time was that when I was being told to go vote, it was like being told, hey, some people are coming over for dinner. You should make a really elaborate baked Alaska for dessert. And then leaving it at that, as if I was supposed to be able to figure out how to do it from being told that it was my obligation and duty to do it. That was really surprising to me. So I have gradually, over time, learned that you'd have to do a fair amount if you really want to cast an informed vote all the way down the ballot. And also at all the other elections that occur, not just the one in November, that you need to do a little bit of thinking and studying on that, or else many people won't vote because they feel like they're not prepared, and maybe the other adults have figured out how to do it, but they haven't. It also starts to seem like it's a part-time job to actually figure it all out. And then they feel a little bit worried about that. So we have tried to create Ballotpedia so that even though you do have to read up on it and do some work on it, that it's one-stop shopping so that you can suss up the situation and be prepared all the way down to the bottom of the ballot about who the candidates are, what are the details about the office that they're running for, and what do they believe about it? What are they planning to do if they get elected? So it's true that there's an infinite amount of other information on the internet, much of it geared toward getting you riled up in an emotional way, which is fine because, you do need a little bit of passion and energy about why you want to go cast that vote. But most people want to actually feel like they're not just voting because they were told that it was their civic duty, but that they've done their homework.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And similar to your voting story, I always tell the story of when I was voting for the first time. It was for a presidential election. I was so excited, but I got to the ballot measures section and I thought the syntax of the question was wrong. Like I thought I got a misprinted ballot because I was so confused by the questioning. I had to Google it verbatim, and thank God actually Ballotpedia came up, but it is very confusing and it can be a challenge if you don't prepare. So I want to kind of hone in and focus specifically on this election. In 2024, both major party presidential candidates are decided at this point, which is kind of 6 full months before the election is going to happen. So for young voters, what is your argument as for why they should be following along with primaries and races happening at the lower levels of government?
Sure, great. One of the things that I think people miss when they talk about it's your duty to vote is that it's fun to vote. It's more fun to vote in primary elections and for the down ballot. And I'd like to say a little bit about why that is. Your vote counts a lot more when you're voting in a primary or when you're voting down ballot for a city council or school board. There are fewer people that are going to cast the vote in a Tuesday in May or a Saturday in April. So some of those elections occur then. You're playing a bigger part in deciding what direction your chosen party goes in. That's what happens when you cast a primary vote. You matter more, and you're actually choosing on your party. So if it's the Democratic Party, you are making an important choice between what direction you want your Democratic Party to go in, and your vote really matters in that context. If you're a Republican, same thing. You are pushing your party in one direction or the other, all the way down the ballot, whether it's for governor, U.S. Senate, state legislator. It's really very significant. And what you are thinking about it not only matters in terms of the vote you cast, but what you share with your friends.
Yeah.
You have a bigger life if you vote than if you don't. It's not just that you're fulfilling your civic duty. It's like you're making your life, as you learn to do this, you are making your life more interesting, bigger, and more significant.
That is actually such a fabulous way to put it. I probably will copy that and tell my friends that when I'm getting them to vote in the primaries. So if we could, I want to kind of pivot over to social media specifically. What ways are you seeing social media influence the political opinions of young voters? And if they are using social media, what steps do you recommend they take to evaluate the information they're seeing?
I may have a little bit of a different answer on this question than many people might. The common view that you get is that if you go on social media and read all that stuff in there, you are just putting yourself in a sewer and you're just going to get dirty and you're going to get a lot of nasty information and it's ugly and you better be really careful. It's really dangerous, right? There's a little bit of that going on.
Yes.
I have never talked to anybody of any age that actually is, I mean, some people do believe things that they see on the internet that are not true. That's true. But most people, almost anybody who's watching this video, seem to me to be well able to tell the difference between maybe kind of fun little things that people are saying on the internet versus actual reality. I actually do not worry about people seeing weird stuff on social media because most people are well able to tell the difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think when we have that conversation, we definitely do a disservice to young voters who were pretty much raised online and definitely do know how to navigate it in a smart way. Ballotpedia in this position is so good to be a fact checker. I myself get into like a little loop when I'm on my own personal accounts, and I love if it doesn't really pass like the sniff test for me, or I'm sensing something that's biased. I love going to Ballotpedia specifically and just checking that the information seems legit, because you always know Ballotpedia is going to be right in the middle for you. So, sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
Go ahead.
So I want to give like the younger kids a shout out, the kids that are in high school. Some of them are even Ballotpedia fellows that care so much about civics and voting, but can't quite vote yet. How would you recommend that they stay engaged before they can officially cast their ballot?
Sure, great. Thanks for pointing out that we have fellows and interns who are not yet of voting age, who are preparing themselves to kind of learn this ecosystem so that the first time they vote, you know, that scene in the first Star Wars movie where Luke Skywalker walks into the bar and it has all the aliens in it. That's what it's like for most people to vote the first time. Kind of disorienting.
Yeah.
So they're learning the ropes. They're studying up on the details. You know, you never know what detail you need to start with. It's like if I'm watching a roller derby game, I don't know how they count points in roller derby. So I'm watching the skater skate around. I'm like, I don't know when somebody committed a foul. I don't know when somebody scores up. Very mysterious to me. Yeah. So if you're going to learn how to understand this situation that you currently don't understand, you just start somewhere. You just start learning some things and then you gradually learn all of it. And people have their own individual learning styles, but I absolutely trust people to dive in there and get the DL figured out.
Yeah, I think that's so true. What was your first dive into politics after you voted for the first time? Like, what subject interests you the most? Was it ballot measures? Is that why you started with ballot measures?
Well, the thing that I was always most interested in is a very small, very nerdy, geeky thing. And I apologize for boring people,
No,
but
that's good.
I was always really interested in how people get on the ballot. So you walk in there and there are the names on the ballot, and I wondered how your name got on there. And the rules that govern how your name appears on a ballot and gets on there in the first place are really interesting to me, but probably not to other people, although we have lots of articles that explain all that in minute detail, which is kind of fun. We do that for a lot of the procedures that govern many aspects of politics. How does that process actually unfold? Because that's important. That's important for people to know at some point in the process when it comes up as an issue.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And working at Ballotpedia, every day I find some new page about the procedure of voting that I had absolutely no idea existed. It really is humbling, but it's very cool. Yeah. Okay, so I want to kind of switch gears again to talk about misinformation, disinformation on social media. We've been reading within the comms a lot about artificial intelligence and deep fakes on social media. How are you thinking about this relative to Ballotpedia's focus on making political engagement easier?
Sure. One thing that we know about Ballotpedia is that we do not engage in any disinformation or misinformation. Our staff is very good at telling the difference between what's a legit fact and what isn't. So we know that we produce clean information. So at least we're keeping our little corner of the internet clean.
Yeah.
There are obviously corners of the internet that are not clean, and there's like a lot of concern this year that some sort of deep fake videos will pop up in September or October that have a important political candidate. They're all important, falsely saying something that they never said. I don't know, and neither does anybody else, what actually will happen in the world if that event is to occur, except that I do think there are so many people watching like a hawk that it will be quickly discovered. And, no one wants to be in a position where we're all sort of going like this, and we hope bad things don't happen. But we, just like, in your own life, you have to keep your own corner of the internet, your own corner of the world clean. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. We can control what we can control, which is our little section of the internet. So before we wrap up, I want to ask just a fun question. If we're just transporting ourselves to a classroom full of first-time voters, they're all in front of you, they're excited, they're registered and ready to go, what advice would you leave them with before they go and cast their ballot?
Sure. I would want to say to them that this is going to be a somewhat exotic experience. Things will happen that you've never observed before. It can be a little bit disorienting, but that's true if you look back on your life of any big adventures that you've had. First time you went on a hike, a 5-mile hike, the first time you rode a bike. So it has all of the elements of a first time experience, and you can't predict until you've gone through it what it turned out that you didn't know. So even if somebody sits down and is like, okay, Jimmy, these are the 999 things you need to know, which no one is doing that, but you're still going to miss some things. Yeah. Treat it like an adventure. So if you set out on January 1st and you have your list of big adventures you want to have that year, it should be on your list. You treat it as an adventure that's going to make your life bigger.
That's fabulous. Leslie, you talk about voting in such a whimsical way. I really, really like it. So,
it has elements of, you are playing a game in a sense. Yeah. It is true that people in the political universe, the candidates and all that, in a sense, are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And make you think that they're the best ever, and they're shading the truth a little bit. I think this is surprising to discover that some of that is always going on in the political universe. So it's a game, and your game is, how can I wind my way through this video game without getting killed? Which means, how can I, get through this without dying on the way? And that's the game you're playing. I think that's kind of fun. I also think a lot of people can learn how to play the game well.
Yeah, that is such a good metaphor and such a good way to end this podcast. Leslie, thank you so much. I know that you're really busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And this was such a career highlight for me. So thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Abby. It was wonderful to talk with you. And I hope people get out there and have the adventure.
Yes, I love that. And for our listeners, you can learn more about our election coverage at the link in our show notes. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Make sure you subscribe to On the Ballot wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Abby Campbell, and thank you so much for listening.